Gotta love drain plugs on automatic transmissions. Great! Hope I didn't break anything. Hello everyone, welcome back to Maverick Mods. This week, got kind of a little potpourri for you. I've been kind of elbows and knees all over the interior on the Firebird, and I was hoping to have a completed interior for the Firebird for you this week. Things happened and life got in the way, and so it's not complete yet. Later in the video, I will do an update on where exactly I am on the Firebird. I'm also going to do a kind of a montage of some of my other projects and just where they stand. Hat tip, hint, haven't been able to do a lot with them. But at least, you know, I'll acknowledge that they are still actually here. First though, you got to do it. Sometimes, you know, your just regular vehicles need maintenance, and the shop truck, well, it's been puking transmission fluid and it's been getting worse. And so I finally pulled it in, identified what it was, and well, gonna do a little bit of actual maintenance work to repair that. In addition to a couple of other problems with the shop truck that I'm gonna work on, I'm gonna try and fix, and a few things I'm gonna discuss with you guys about just the industry in general. So grab your popcorn. Let's get started. Here a while back, I can't remember when it was, a few months ago, driving the Dakota to the shop or back from the shop, I can't remember which, check engine light comes on. And so I pulled out my reader, checked the code, and it said, I think the code's P0470, I think it's torque converter clutch, RPM not drop after lockup. Okay, well, that poses kind of a question, because there's a couple of different things in the process. I could have a bad torque converter. I could have a bad solenoid sending fluid to the torque converter. I could have something in the computer that's not sending the signal to the solenoid. So there's a diagnostic process involved with this. So I grabbed my scanner, plugged it in here in the shop, couldn't find anything wrong. With the scanner plugged in, took the truck for a drive. The way the scanner works, or the way the diagnostic system works, I can see if the solenoid is getting a signal to be activated, but I can't actually verify that the solenoid is actually activating. Does that make sense? I can do that while the truck's in motion, but I can't actually manipulate the solenoid with the scan tool while the truck's in motion. So I couldn't actually push the little button to make the solenoid work, and then I could feel the converter lockup. Couldn't do that. So in addition to the leaking shift shaft seal, which is what the puking transmission fluid was all about, that's why the truck is on the lift right now, and I'm about to get covered in transmission fluid. Gotta love drain plugs on automatic transmissions. You know, back in the old days, and I even remember this vaguely, but back in the old days, automatic transmissions had drain plugs. The manufacturers stopped putting drain plugs in the transmissions, supposedly because too many mechanics were mistaking the transmission drain for the engine drain, and they would do an oil change and mistakenly drain the automatic transmission. I don't know if that corresponds to the rise of the Jiffy Lube type places, but they kind of came about the same time. You do the math, come to your own conclusions. Anyway, transmission's drained. Let me go ahead and zip these bolts out. In order to get to the shifter shaft seal, or shift shaft seal, whatever you want to call it, the valve body's got to come out. And to drop the valve body, I've got to pop the, that's the cable or arm for the throttle position. This little spring comes out. It's kind of a pain in the butt just because there's not a whole lot of room to work up in here. So this little spring, I'm going to hang it back in this little holder back here. There we go. That way I don't lose it. And I got to pop the shifter cable off. There we go. Now the arm will have to come off also. And there's, I believe that's a 10 millimeter and I believe that's a 13. They just unscrew and they slide off. One of the other things I'm going to do while I'm down here, and this may or may not do anything, I'm not sure. I've been reading, or I should say I have read, it's a possibility, so I'm going to try it if my ratchet will work, is swapping the filter out from the newer style with the kind of the synthetic screen to the older style 727 filter. I'm going to check this filter. Well, that's great. I'm going to check this filter because there's one way to kind of look and see if, you know, your suspicions are correct. And that's not always the case. Is that the screen and the filter will kind of be sucked against the. Ooh. Great, great. That was a nice mess. I've been dealing with wind and rain from Tropical Storm Debbie all morning. We're going to take a look at this filter. After I clean all this transmission fluid off of it. Okay, so here's what we're looking at on this filter. This is the modern style filter for the I guess the modern, the RE 42, 44, 46, etc., 47, 48, and all that. And the problem is you've got a fairly small opening here. And if we look inside of here, I know it's kind of hard to see, maybe I can get a good angle on this. You can kind of see in the little voids in here. Now, of course, this filter's got a little bit of debris in it. It's not bad, but it's some. And this is the filter I put in it when I installed the transmission in the truck. So it's probably got, I'm guessing, 15,000 miles on it, so something like that. But you see how it's right in here in the, there's little, like a grid inside the filter. And the filter material is sucked against that grid, and it's got little depressions in there. And I have read and I have heard, and my transmission guys are saying, get rid of this thing and swap it over to the old style 727 filter, which I'm gonna do. I've got that here, and basically it's got a lot more surface area to offer to the transmission. The theory being that maybe, and this is a big maybe, that small opening on that filter is restricting the flow, and I'm hoping that has something to do with my torque converter lockup. I don't have any other problems with the transmission, but I'm grasping at straws at this point before I have to go and dig into the transmission and find out what's wrong with it. So next up, let me get the valve body out. And one other thing I'm going to check while the valve body's out, it's got to come out because I need to change the shift shaft seal. But I can also access the solenoid for the torque converter lockup, and I'll actually hook my scan tool up and see if we can make that solenoid operate while it's sitting out and see if the solenoid's bad. I've got the last bolt out. There's just no way around getting messy on this. I've got to pull it straight down to get it past the shift shaft and the electronics connector. Then once that's done, then I got to deal with the parking rod pawl thingy. There we go. Okay. Now, great. Hope I didn't break anything. Where I'm at, I've got my scan tool plugged in. I've got the key on, and we're reading codes here. And this is the code we're looking at here. It says P0740, torque converter clutch, no RPM drop at lockout. And I can confirm that. It shows that the solenoid is activating when it's driving. Problem is I can't manipulate the solenoid while I'm in motion. So what we're going to do is, let's get out of this, codes only. I want functional tests. Let's see, we're at ATM, is that what I want? Yes, okay. So we're going to go to the PTU TCC solenoid, and I should be able to here activate that, and I should be able to feel it. I'm going to hook the valve body back up to the connector and just hold it, and hopefully I'll be able to hear that solenoid click or not, and that'll tell me what's going on. Now the solenoids themselves are back here by the governor. In order to actually pull the solenoid out, I've got to take the governor whole body off. I don't really want to do that, and I may actually have to take the valve body apart. I really don't want to do that today. So I'm just going to kind of hang on to these after I plug this in and see if I can make the computer do its thing if this cable is long enough to plug in. Figure out the best way to... I think it goes that way? Yeah. There we go. Okay. Now I should be able to just like stick my fingers on these. And now I'm going to go and grab the computer. What I'm doing here is I'm turning this solenoid on and off. I can feel it. That's on, off, on, off. Okay, so the signal is going to the solenoid, so I know everything going to the computer is good. Everything going through the wiring to the solenoid is good, and the solenoid, in theory, is good also. And unfortunately, that may tell me that the torque converter itself is bad. That's my next step. If just basic doing a fluid filter change and manipulating the solenoid a couple times, if that doesn't clear it up, then I guess I'm looking at a torque converter. All right, well, let me get this shifter shaft seal changed, and we'll get the valve body back in to get this transmission buttoned up. Now I'm changing out the shift shaft seal, which actually goes down, straight down that way. And here's what the new seal looks like. So here's the seal, and the seal is supposed to go down right there, and it's supposed to go straight down. Now, there's absolutely no way I can get up in there and tap that in. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put my seal there. I got myself a washer, which is exactly the same size as the outer portion of the seal. Stick that there. Then I've got another washer and a nut that goes on the bottom. I'm just going to pull it together. I can do this way. There we go. It's a little homemade seal installer. I'm sure the factory makes a tool for this, which I don't have. The thing is, I got to make sure it's straight. There we go. All right. Yep. Okay, now I should obviously just have to tighten that nut up, and that should pull that seal down. Make sure it's seated. Well, I can't really tell if it's fully seated. I think it is. Feels like it. All right. Okay. Shift shaft seal, new one, is installed. Now you can put the valve body back in. This ought to be fun, because these sometimes can be kind of a pain. That's what I was looking for. So there you go. Homemade seal installation tool. The valve body's got to go in, and I got to keep from dropping my governor. All right, so here's what I got to do. I got to get my, first thing I got to do is get the parking pawl rod, whatever you're going to call it, in place. and you got to kind of wiggle it around a little bit. Sometimes it goes right in, sometimes it doesn't. See a little piece of fuzz there. Gotta get out of there. Okay. Today it looks like it went in. Okay. Now I gotta get the, there you go, solenoids in. Or I should say not the solenoids, the shifter, parking shifter, etc. thingy. And I gotta drop it down a little bit. There we go. Get the governor servo in. Get everything lined up. And then it's all you gotta push against that spring. Now I'm gonna get a bolt in. This is the wrong bolt for this. But I'm gonna put a bolt in just to hold it. There we go. All right. All right. I did screw up. Luckily, I caught it before I screwed up too bad. Let me just drop this down just a second. I put the spring on the wrong side on the accumulator. It should go, yeah, it'll go in a lot easier now. All right, there we go. Okay, much better. This is why I hate working over my head. Let's get all these bolts in. If I can remember where they go, that one goes there. Good. What? Ow! Boy, that hurt. That's gonna leave a mark. Only thing that would make this harder is if I wasn't on a lift, I was doing this lying on my back with the truck on jack stands, which I have done before, and it's not fun. Torque to 100 inch-pounds. I'm gonna kind of crisscross these until they're all tight. All right, let me double check everything. Okay, back together. Next, let me put the filter on. I'm gonna go ahead and change the neutral safety switch while I'm at it, and I can button everything back up. So I didn't want to bore you guys with, putting a transmission pan back on and filling it with fluid, and then as I tend to do with these transmissions, I overfilled it with fluid and then drove it around and figured out I overfilled it and then had to come back and drain some fluid out of it. It's a whole overfilling of fluid thing. But the truck is working fine. The torque converter's locking up now. No check engine light, and all I did was change the filter to a different style filter. I hope that's what it was. Time will tell, but as for now, the pickup transmission is fixed. So, next problem with the truck. Last couple of months or so, last month, something or somewhere around there, been hearing a grinding noise in the front end. So, while it's in the shop, let's see if we can figure out what that is. Guys, time for a little rant. 2 years, actually less than 2 years, front hubs. Hope you can hear this. That's one side. Replaced them less than 2 years ago, already worn out. What do we got? Cheap Chinese parts? I don't know, but no. Those should last a heck of a lot longer than 2 years. So let's get this replaced. So I changed both front hubs. Again, less than 2 years, and they went bad. I think I figured out at least partially why. I know you probably can't tell by looking at this, but believe me, these bearings are not sealed bearings. They are tapered roller bearings. So there's two bearings, there's one here and one here. They're tapered roller bearings, but they're not sealed. They are shielded, and there's a difference, but they're not sealed bearings. So basically water, you get any water in these things and it just starts washing the grease out. I don't know for certain if the factory hubs were that way or if this is the aftermarket hub deal, but whoever in the hierarchy of whatever company that makes these things decided that saving 5 cents on a shielded bearing versus a sealed bearing, I want to talk to them. So new hubs are on. No more grinding noise. Life is good on the pickup. But now on to the next problem with the pickup. Okay, on to the third problem with the shop truck. I'm on my third fan clutch in 3 years. You know, that's the one, instead of the fan being directly linked to the water pump pulley, you've got a thermostatically controlled fan clutch. And the way that thing works is it's filled with some kind of fluid that reacts to heat. And the hotter it gets, the more it tends to lock up and spin the fan. And when it's not hot, it's not supposed to spin the fan. What's happening is the one I just put on recently is doing the exact opposite. And so I'm having problems overheating when I'm sitting idling in traffic. Usually when it's hot out here, and it's hot out here right now. Not so bad in the winter, summer's worse, especially with the air conditioning going. But again, I haven't actually done anything about this yet because I'm researching just replacing the mechanical fan with a good dual fan electric fan setup. Still researching that, still trying to figure if I can buy a set that's kind of made to drop in or if I'm gonna have to make my own. I'm working on that. But again, we're back to, I mean, I've had the exact same failure on, well, I put a brand new one on when I put the 5.9 in the Dakota. Replaced it about, well, probably less than a year. And then that one, I don't remember if it failed shortly or if it lasted the long, I don't remember, but it failed too. And the one that's on there now, 6 months, maybe, something like that, and it's already failed. So again, where are we at? Cheap Chinese parts, cheap parts from Vietnam, cheap parts from Mexico, piss poor parts from the US. What's going on? What is going on with the state of the parts supply and whatnot for our vehicles? Well, let's do a little, let me revisit this subject at the end of the video. For now, let's take a look at kind of where my other projects are. Well, let's start the project updates with the one I've been working on the most, the Firebird. Where we left off last, I'd gotten the side panels done, I'd gotten the seats in, and the next step was to work on the package shelf, the seat belts, etc., etc. And so I've got the package shelf done, I've got the seat belts installed. Got a treat for you on the seat belts. They're, hint, they're not stock Firebird seat belts. And even though the front seats are in, that's not permanent because that's part of the seat belt installation process. And you ask, why do seat belts now? Well, I'm doing the seat belts now because the retractor reels are going to mount up in the roof, and my updated headliner, I need to make cutouts for the retractor reels and then build covers to go over the top of the retractor reels. So long story short, the retractor reels need to be in place, so the seat belts need to be in place before I can finish up the headliner install. Still haven't got to the HVAC. That's next, dash, and that'll pretty much complete the interior. I know it looks kind of a mess with the wiring harness all kind of messy right there, but it's I'd like to say it's not as bad as it looks, and it's really not as bad as it looks. But that's where we're on the Firebird, and I'm kind of right in the middle of all of this, so that's why I'm not doing a Firebird specific update this week. That's where we're at on the Firebird. On to the next project. Barney is back. He came back during the shop rebuild. He was next door for a while, just in kind of in storage. Right now, haven't done anything to it since the last time I put something out about this. It's probably been, what, 6 or 7 months ago. Right now, it's kind of a convenient storage shelf for Firebird parts. For those of you who haven't seen anything about my C10 here, this is a 72 C10, picked up a while back. It ran sort of, kind of barely. Transmission's gone in it. So far, all I've done is kind of decide what I want to do with it. I found a wrecked 2006 Chevy Trailblazer SS that had the LS2 400 horsepower, etc. Became the donor car, and I managed to get the engine, transmission, rear end, most of the interior, seats, assorted, you know, goodies, and eventually they'll go on Barney. For those of you guys that haven't seen anything about a C10 on my channel, too lazy to look, search through all the videos, link in the description takes you right to episode 1 of the Seatown build. On to the next project, 1941 Studebaker. Still haven't completely decided what to do with it, but it hasn't moved since the last time I decided I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So here it sits, and it will continue to sit. I'll get to it eventually. Let's see, where are we? Next project, the Whizer. We got to go back here to find it. It's back here collecting dust right now. Haven't really had the time to do anything with it. So I'll get to it, I promise. Final project, the shop update. It's little by little, I'm improving, finding where things are supposed to go, finding things that I lost in the 3 days it took to move everything. Sometimes I haven't always found everything, but other than that, it's getting there. I'm kind of, you know, getting closer to having it be a really workable shop. So that's kind of the update on the shop. For those of you who haven't seen the Whizer, link in the description. For those of you who haven't seen the Studebaker, link in the description. Shop rebuild, link in the description. All right, enough of that. Let's move on. So that's kind of where all the projects in the Maverick universe are sitting right now. I had a lot of other stuff on my plate. I've even worked on, you know, just regular cars. My wife's car needed valve cover gaskets. I did that. Might do a how-to video on that. I might not, because so far how-to videos don't seem to do well. So we'll see. Any guys that have a V6 Honda JTEC motor that want to know how to replace the valve cover gaskets, let me know. Maybe I will actually publish that video. So let me move back to what I was talking about before, about the state of parts supply situation and keeping some of our older vehicles on the road. And just so you guys know, I don't script any of this. I don't write anything down. This is all just off the top of my head. So if it seems like I ramble sometimes, and I know I ramble, that's why. I'm just kind of, as the thought pops in, sometimes it just comes out. But here we go. Obviously, the manufacturers, and it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's domestic, foreign, German, Japanese, American, whatever, they aren't going to continue to make parts and replacement parts, and they're not going to continue to support vehicles for years and years and years after the fact, after they've manufactured them. There was a point in time where, you know, you could get factory parts on cars from back in the 60s and 70s. You could get them for maybe 15 years or so. There was a point in time where that kind of shortened to about 10 years, and I'm not even sure now. I mean, 10 years is probably a good, you know, ballpark about how long the manufacturer will support the vehicle that they produced. Once that 10 or so year period is up, and it doesn't happen, it's like at 10 years the manufacturer says, oh, well, we're not going to support it anymore, so good luck. Leading up to that, they will basically contract, or they'll find, or they have agreements with parts suppliers, aftermarket parts suppliers, and the technical specifications, etc., will kind of transfer to them. Sometimes the molds to make the parts, sometimes the process to make the parts will transfer to the supplier, and that's where, or it could also be a series of suppliers, but that's where our parts come from for vehicles that are older than 10 years old. They're not coming from GM, they're not coming from Toyota most of the time. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they don't. And as we all know, there was a point in time where most of those parts were made in the US. Those days disappeared decades ago. And as the parts manufacturers have moved, shall I say, farther and farther away from our shores, there have been times where the quality has kind of gone down in proportion to the distance away from us that they are. Let's just leave it at that. Doesn't solve our problem. Our problem is still, how do we get good parts? And I'm not sure that the answer to that, there is an answer to that. The front hubs on the Dakota were name brand, high quality stuff that I've been using since the 80s. And yet they failed in they failed in a year. So what does that mean? I don't know the answer to that. It doesn't mean I'm not going to buy their parts. Sometimes you don't have a choice, you know. And when I say name brand, this is not the nameless brand at some of the auto parts stores. This is actually a name brand. It's 4 letters, starts with an M, that goes back probably to the 50s or the 60s. And I don't know. So what's the solution? I hate to tell you guys, there isn't one. That's this is where we're at. This is what we have to deal with. If you can find OEM parts, hoard them, because they probably are, well, hopefully they're better than you know, what you can get down at the auto parts store. Hopefully, but I don't know there's any guarantee on that anymore either. Well, I don't want to end this video on a downer, so I need you guys' help. The shop truck, let's see, when I bought it, it had 250,000 miles on it, something like that. It now just turned over 292,000 miles. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't have the original motor, it does not have the original transmission, and it doesn't have the original rear end. So the entire drivetrain, they're junkyard specials, but they're still going strong. The rest of the truck, I did a complete thorough rebuild, repaint, interior refresh, all of that. I like the truck. I like the way it drives. It's fun. I enjoy it. A lot better than the latest behemoths coming from the big 4 or 5 that are making full-size pickups. But I'm going to reach a point where some of the horsepowers are going to escape from under the hood. And I'm trying to figure out long-term planning. What do I do about that? And I've got several options. Option 1, it's got a 5.9 in it. It's fine and dandy. Problem is, it's kind of short in the horsepower department. It's got plenty of torque. It's good for low-end torque. However, the type of vehicle I'm driving, I'm not driving a full-size pickup. I'm driving a mid-size pickup. I don't need that much torque. Horsepower would help me a little bit, and I don't mind a few more horsepowers. So help me out here, guys. I've got options. Option 1 would be to rebuild the 5.9 that's in there and maybe throw some performance goodies at it. That opens up a problem. It's not a problem. That opens up a can of worms, because the Magnum series of engines the support for them is declining. It has been declining for years. Some of it's disappearing. A couple of years ago, I could buy long tube headers for it. They don't exist anymore. They're unobtainium. Nobody makes them anymore. I've ordered a set of headers, and I've got another set sitting on the shelf that I'm actually going to make my own headers for it. And this is short term, when I need to redo the exhaust. So I can rebuild the 5.9. It's also going to be pretty spendy. To give you guys an idea, a set of aluminum heads, I believe they're AFR heads. A couple of companies make aluminum heads when you can get them. The basic of the heads are $1,100 a piece. A set of AFR or Edelbrock aluminum heads for a small block Chevy or a small block Ford are $1,000 for a pair. That gives you an idea of the popularity and the availability of some of these parts. So anything I do to that 5.9 is going to be pricey. Second option, I could do another engine swap. Of course, I swapped originally from the 3.9 V6 to the 5.9 V8. That was kind of a no-brainer, because that's a factory option. It was really, really simple to do. I could step up from there, do a Hemi swap. It's been done. There are kits to do that. It's not cheap. And around here, decent Hemis, you know, pull out Hemis from wrecking yards, are good ones are really hard to find. So that's an option. For my particular vehicle, it's not the greatest option, because I've got issues with the electronics. There's a year or so difference, 99 versus 2000, that makes one of them hard, mine hard, and the 2000 ends up easier. Anyway, so that's option 2, is to Hemi swap it. Option 3, I could do an LS swap on it. The motors are the exact same size. It literally is a drop-in. Make new motor mounts. Of course, I'll have to change the transmission, drive shaft, exhaust, electronics, cooling, you know, just the minor stuff. But it's a viable option. So, and I have no brand loyalty. I mean, I may get burned in effigy for dropping a Chevy motor in a Dodge pickup. I don't care. Hey, as long as it runs, I get 100 more horsepowers and maybe, you know, 30 or 50 more torques out of it, I'd be happy. So let me know what you think. All right, so hopefully that's a slightly more upbeat ending to the video. I know it made it longer. Sorry about that, guys. Certainly appreciate those of you guys that stuck around to the end of this video. I know I kind of rambled and I know I kind of, you know, jumped around on a few subjects, but thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. We'll see you guys next week. Everybody, have a great day.